What's up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 340 of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast. I'm Tony Mango, your host as always, for, as you can tell, the Hot Tags edition of the week, where I'll be breaking down some of the current events, gossip, news, rumors, and whatever other types of bullshit that I would like to talk about that has gone on in the world of professional wrestling and sports entertainment over the past couple of days. How y'all doing today? I'm a little tired. Monday Night Raw just ended. It was a pain in the ass episode where I didn't enjoy pretty much any of the 3 hours at all. And that's continuing to burn me out of pro wrestling and stuff like that. But I'm sticking around, and you're just going to get a little bit of a salty episode too. I'll talk about the good things, I'll talk about the bad things, but forewarned, not really in the mood to be talking about a lot of these things right now. So, such is life. But, unfortunately, the majority of the hot tags of this week are negative things, too. So, this is just going to be a lot of negative energy, a lot of pessimism and stuff like that going on. But I do have a couple of good things sprinkled in. So, don't worry, it's not just a nasally guy with his allergies bugging him, bothering you about how life blows or something like that. There's some good stuff, too. And I want to start things off with a good thing. That was the latest episode of Something Else to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard, the John Cena episode. If you haven't seen it yet from last Wednesday, go back and check it out. I think that you should see it for a couple of different reasons. It was an entertaining episode. I thought it was an informative episode. And I liked that they were talking about some topics that were a little bit newer, because mostly what he's been talking about has been that type of 80s and 90s range, which, I mean, admittedly, that's because that's when he was, more of a prominent backstage guy. But talking about John Cena's beginning of his career, that was something a little bit different. So I really liked the insight here. I think that if you are a John Cena fan, it's a must. If you're not a John Cena fan, it's still something that you can get quite a bit out of. And I would really recommend checking it out. It's not as long as some of the other ones, I think. I think it was only like an hour and a half. And it had a nice flow to it. And, I don't know. I really liked it a lot. This was one of my favorite episodes that they have done so far. And they teased that this next episode was going to be something controversial. And I'm kind of curious what that's going to be about. But we'll see how that goes. And maybe it'll be better. Maybe, that'll be a step up even. But I did like it a lot. I think that you should check it out. I don't have notes written down of like some highlights from it. Unfortunately, I, for some reason, just didn't write that down, but I do know that they talked about the idea that OVW had a great class of different people, and he ranked, say, like Randy Orton, and Shelton Benjamin, and Brock Lesnar, and Batista, and Cena, on how that they were kind of viewing them at the time. And there was also a little bit of an insight of John Cena, his first impression, and everybody thinking that he was, I think the phrase was a walking billboard for steroids. And stuff like that's pretty interesting. I like that quite a bit. And I'm actually going to bounce around here. I'm just going to go with the other positive topic next because it kind of makes sense. The latest special on the WWE Network after that was WWE Photo Shoot with the Godfather. And another one that I really recommend checking out. I'm really glad that they didn't gloss over Papa Shango and Kama, the Supreme Fighting Machine, because those are two eras of his career that people don't necessarily focus on. I mean, he was billed in this as Photo Shoot with the Godfather. That's the main thing that got him his notoriety, but he did have, multiple characters beforehand. So I grew up mostly with Kama and the Nation of Domination and the Godfather. I actually wasn't watching with Right to Censor, and I wasn't really watching because I was too young with the whole thing with Papa Shango and stuff like that, but, retrospectively, I was able to watch that on old tapes and stuff like that, so that's an era that I think that doesn't get as much of the attention that it deserves, I think, because Papa Shango, I mean, he mentions himself, one of the first people to ever have, like, the lighting effects and stuff like that, so that was really cool. Really glad to see that they, I never knew this, Kama apparently stood for Kick Any Man's Ass, which that's a really neat little piece of trivia. I really like that. He also told a funny story about how Kurt Hennig and other people used to rib him quite a bit with the casket matches, and that they would put like a dead fish in there just to make it so it's like unbearable for him to be able to actually like, be stuck in there for the amount of time before they get to the backstage area and everything. Really interesting story about the fact that he was supposed to be in the NWO, and he was going to go in as their bodyguard, but he ended up getting pushed aside because Virgil was able to get in cheaper. That is very interesting to me, because it actually ended up, in retrospect, being one of the better decisions that had happened in his career, because he was able to actually come into WWE in a different fashion with the Godfather, not come into WWE, reinvent himself is what I should say. And that, took off, whereas Virgil, being the Vincent character, not so much, So he feels a little bit bitter about that, and I don't blame him for, if he thought that would have been a potential good career decision and stuff, but it worked out, right? You gotta be at least happy about that. And it's weird to see that he didn't like Right to Censor at all, and you could tell that he legitimately just really hated it, because all he says about that, and that entire segment, is just about how he didn't like it and stuff. But I would think that there would be a little bit more appreciation of the fact that that makes sense. If you are trying to get heel heat and you take this character that's fun and you make him not fun anymore, that's a brilliant decision, I think. So I'm really kind of confused about why he doesn't necessarily see that. Maybe it was just that it wasn't fun to do. It makes logical sense, but it wasn't fun. It could be like that. Or maybe he thought that he should have been the type of person that was feuding with Right to Censor instead. And that, they could have gone around that route too, but opinions are opinions and everything like that. And I think that this was just another informative episode, fun, entertaining episode, and definitely both of these on the see it or skip it scale, both of them see it. That's my my full endorsement for those. But here's where we get into more of the dicey hot tag territory, because nothing else here is positive to talk about. I guess I'll start with the least negative one, which is that Austin Aries has merged the Impact Grand Championship with the Impact World Heavyweight Championship, a decision that I think is stupid. And I don't follow Impact Wrestling. I haven't for a long time, so I can't say that this is going to affect me in any regard. But to me, the Impact Grand Championship was the nicest looking title that they had ever had, for the most part. It also had the best name, and it was functionally a mid-card title. Some reason in Impact, they seem to not understand how to do these titles. They've got their World Championship, which should just be the World Championship, but, whatever. Then they had this whole Legends Championship, and then it moved around to the Global Championship, and the TV, and the King of the Mountain, and the Grand, and it's the type of thing where it's like you bounced around all around with these stupid rules and these different decisions of how you're going to do it, yet all you had to do was just have it be the Grand Championship. It's another title, like the Intercontinental Championship or the United States Championship. It's just a secondary title. And what's hurting the Grand Championship from being that? The X Division is the no limits, but it's mostly the cruiserweights, but sometimes we have somebody else that's not a cruiserweight win it, all in quotation marks, championship. And that's just strange to me, because the cruiserweight idea, I've never liked the cruiserweight idea. Let me put that out there. I don't like the idea that they've got heavyweight and cruiserweight, but they don't make the same distinction with heavyweight. And I hate that that would be the case too. I wouldn't want to see a scenario where only, say in WWE, only somebody like Braun Strowman or Samoa Joe could be the heavyweight champion and somebody like a Daniel Bryan couldn't. I think that you need a WWE champion where it doesn't specify world heavyweight, and then you can use like the Intercontinental and whatever like that. The Grand Championship to me was such a perfect idea without the stupid rule set thing that they had. Just have it be the Grand Championship and just have it be a secondary title. And they're not doing it. But who am I to tell Impact that what they haven't been doing hasn't been working and what they have been doing hasn't? This is so stupid. And I just assume that this is going to be another thing where a couple of months from now, they're going to debut some other championship, and it's going to be stupid. It's going to be the Impact Anthem, I don't know. For all I fucking know, it's going to be the Anthem Weight Championship or something stupid like that, where it makes no sense whatsoever. I just think it's dumb. Not a fan of it whatsoever. And that's all I'm going to talk about when it comes to Impact, because that's all I can stomach when it comes to Impact a lot of the time. let's talk about NXT. This is the main topic for the whole thing, but mostly just because the other stuff's going to delve into like politics and stuff. And I know that some people don't like that. So I'm going to get this out of the way. Then if you don't want to watch the rest of the episode, you don't have to watch it. WWE has released Zeda from NXT and apparently Uriel Ealy, but not Gabriel Ealy. This is where it gets confusing. They have Gabriel Ealy up on the Performance Center website, which is a brand new website, and it gives us like at least a little bit of an insight of how certain people are classified. You know, that has like the names of the trainers and what their quote unquote job is. And you would think that with the Ealy twins, one of them being released means the other one's being released, especially when Gabriel Ealy has apparently been dealing with, quote, 24-hour migraines. These migraines seem to point, in my mind, to a concussion issue. And if it's a concussion issue, why is Gabriel not the one that's being released? Why is Uriel? I read something, I can't remember where it was some kind of a comment section on some website or Facebook post or whatever it was, and somebody brought up a good point. And I wish I could give credit to him, so since I didn't write it down, sorry. If you are you and you're listening, then credit to you. They brought up the idea that maybe there is some kind of a contract issue here, where they've got some sort of clause where they don't want to admit that this happened in WWE. If they have the Ealy twins, I would assume at least on similar contract deals, and maybe they're not on the same contract because just in case something were to happen and you wanted to keep one and release the other one, you wouldn't have to, do a whole new contract and stuff like that. I'm assuming Gabriel has his own and Uriel has his own, and maybe there's some kind of a clause between the two about like, look, we're signing you as a duo act, and if you don't follow through with it, you both could go. What if Gabriel has these migraines, but they don't want to admit that this is something that happened in WWE itself, so they can't release him yet. And eventually down the line, he will get released. But for now, because Uriel doesn't have this health problem, that they could release him. I don't know about these contract disputes, and I don't know if that's something that's legitimate or not, but it makes sense to me. And that makes more sense to me than the idea that just Uriel would be released and Gabriel would not, particularly with the whole migraine situation. So I'm assuming that both Ealy twins are released. There has been some speculation that a couple of other people have been released as well. Eric Bugenhagen, I think is his name. These are all NXT people, so I don't know anything about them. Demetrius Bronson is one. Nikolai Salcho, I think is his name. I don't know anything about these guys. So I can't tell you if like, oh man, that's a shame and stuff. At least with the Ealy twins, I saw something to them. I thought that they had at least a little bit of potential, but I wasn't really, going like, oh man, I can't wait until they come up to the main roster or something like that. So in my mind, it's not the biggest loss. And the same thing kind of comes with Zeda. She seemed okay, but nothing really too super duper special to me. It's not like I had an invested interest in either of these careers. But with anybody, when they get released, unless they get released because of being like a complete jerk off or something like that, you always got to wish them the best and assume that maybe WWE partially was on this, maybe they were partially in on this, and maybe it was just that things didn't work out. And hopefully Zeda and the Ealy twins and anybody else that potentially is released too, if they are still going to be in the wrestling industry, hopefully they succeed. You could go to Ring of Honor, you could go to New Japan. There's plenty of other kind of options out there. You could be all in at this point, probably. And if they're not going to be in the wrestling industry anymore, then hopefully they figure out what else they want to do. Plenty of people do this kind of thing, and then the next time you hear from them, it's because they're a real estate agent or something like that. Whatever your passion is. It could be whatever it is. And best of luck for those guys. And girl. I don't really have any like big stories to tell about like, the time that I saw them there and I really wish that they could have gone further or something like that. They're just NXT people, and with the unfortunate scenario of NXT is if you're not on the main roster of NXT, you don't really get to see much of them. They're only on live events and stuff. So, boo, thumbs down. But I don't have a personal beef with this, you know? Okay, so now we're going to get into these ones. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of information when it comes to some of these things. So I will put that out there way in advance that I am speaking from a pure opinion point of view of limited information. And mostly I'm talking about this because people have suggested it as like, you know, it'd be good for you to talk about this, and what are your opinions about this, and what do you think about that? And I'm sure if I didn't, that people would ask anyway that haven't asked already and stuff like that. So I'm going to put my opinions out there, but just to let you guys know, I am not an authority about any of this kind of stuff. So there's 3 topics to talk about that I think dive into legal issues and politics and some confusing barriers and stuff. Those are the CM Punk and Chris Amann trial that's going on, WWE firing one of their executives, and the whole situation with Al-Qaeda. I guess I'll start with the CM Punk one. I have not been following the trial to a T. I know that some other people are. I know that Nick over on WrestleZone, he is making sure that gets covered quite a bit. And I know that Robert has been following it, Callum's been following it a little bit too, and so on and so forth. I have not followed through all the notes, and I don't know shit about the legal system either. I've never done jury duty, and I really hope that I never have to. I am not interested in Law and Order. I'm not interested in legal TV shows or, like, you know, Judge Judy and stuff like that. Never been something that's been my passion and stuff. Even when it comes to a show like Suits, I've heard quite a bit of people go, oh man, Suits is really good, you should check it out. Nah, I kind of don't care. So by no means am I going to be like, well, here's the insight of, like, this person seems like they should have said this and this person should have said that. But from my point of view, this is where it seems like it's going in my mind. It seems like we've got a case here where the doctor, Chris Amann, is trying to say that by Punk and Colt Cabana having that podcast, that it negatively affects his career, and that it's kind of a libel situation. You know, you spoke ill of me, and that's hurting my reputation, and I'm suing you. Meanwhile, it seems as a counter to that, Punk is trying to bring up the idea that maybe he wasn't as good of a doctor, and that maybe his point of view was valid, and that he could have potentially had a staph infection and MRSA, and it could have been a bigger deal, and he, I guess, willingly denied treatment, and so on and so forth. It sort of comes off to me, based off of the notes, based off of my very extremely limited knowledge of the legal system and everything like that, that both sides are fucked. That's what it seems like to me. It looks like the idea of this whole, like, it ruined my reputation by you doing this podcast thing is ridiculous, kind of. If he had gotten fired from WWE, I think that would be more of a leg to stand on, but didn't he say that it has not affected his WWE career? Doesn't that sort of admit that this isn't affecting him, you know? Like, it comes off to me. I keep saying it comes off to me because I want to specify that I don't know how the legal system views this type of thing, but at least in my point of view, my perspective is that if I were to say to somebody, you, like, I don't know, say, when people leave a comment and it says, like, oh, fuck you, Tony's opinion is wrong. If I were to sue that person and say, this hurt my mental state, and it really affected my work performance, and it was very bothersome, and the emotional distraught was just kind of, you know, too much to bear. And then somebody said, well, how did this affect you? And then I said, oh, not really. I mean, like, I went through every day perfectly fine. Then they would go, all right, well, then your case is bullshit. You know what I mean? That's what it seems like to me. And then it seems like also to counter that, it kind of seems to me like Punk is sort of arguing that he was being a bad patient and not really following through with orders, not really asking questions, maybe making things worse. I don't know. This is still not figured out yet. Punk has his fight coming up and I don't know how the trial is going to affect that. I will be watching the fight most likely, and I'll try to chime in on the hot tags next week about that and stuff, but ooh, man, I don't know. This is tough. This is a weird situation, and I would not be surprised at all if this gets thrown out as, like, the jury has decided that the podcast did not negatively influence you, but also Punk does not win any kind of counterclaim, and the end is you all just pay legal fees and go off on your own, you know? That's what it seems like to me. I don't know. If anybody has any other, like, especially if you are in, like, the legal system and stuff, and you've got some point of view of, like, well, this is, the fact that they said this means such and such and whatever like that, by all means, leave a comment below and fill me in on this. But also another legal situation, this is a firing, actually. WWE has fired one of their executives, the Senior Vice President of Global Content Distribution and Business Development. That's a fucking title. Salvatore Sino, because of his wife's Twitter account. His wife, Amy Mech, on Twitter. She is apparently like a huge alt-right person with 230,000 followers. You could tell very quickly by looking through her feed that she's got certain pro-Trump things going on. I mean, she has in her description, #NRA, #Jews for Trump. And what this seems to be is a case where she's not too popular online. I've never heard of her, and then that's because I don't follow politics, because I fucking hate it. I hate this kind of thing. I actually put up a Facebook post the other day saying the two things that make it easier for me to unfollow you, whether that's Instagram or, you know, whatever it is number one, if you post a bunch of politics, and number two, if you post a bunch of baby pictures, because I don't want to see your kid smeared with a bunch of fucking spaghetti all over his face, and I don't want to see you bitching and complaining about the left or the right. I really get sick and tired of it. I got some friends that are constantly posting about how anybody who isn't in the LGBT community is the worst monster in the entire universe, and then I've got some other people that are saying, if you try to take away my gun, I'm going to kill everybody who's not such and such, and it's just, I fucking hate everything like that. Have your opinions, whatever they are. I am not one way or the other. I believe in kind of a central point of view. So I can't say that it's a good idea for them to have fired this guy based off of his wife's account. Mostly because I don't think that people should be held accountable for anybody but themselves unless they are in a position where that's expected of them. For instance, if you are a police chief and you are supposed to maintain a certain control over the other cops that you're overseeing, and something happens and you were supposed to be instrumental in training them and instructing them, then yeah, you should be held accountable. If I have a cousin who, I don't know, robs a liquor store, should I be looked at as a criminal just because I have a family member that's related to it? Now, of course, granted, to a certain extent, you got to assume that he probably has the same opinions as his wife. And if this is a giant troll account sort of situation and all that, then it's certainly not good for WWE to be associated with him. But even if I disagree with some of her points of view, I don't know if I agree with the idea that they could just fire him off of that. I think that that's jumping the gun a little bit. Maybe it's a situation where they looked at the Roseanne problem and they said, look, we just don't want any kind of fire. And maybe they do have something in their contract that says, like, WWE has the right to fire you based off of any kind of public image issue that we might see. And if that's the case, it's well within the contract. The guy signed the contract, and you can't really dispute it at that point. But it seems a little bit weird. And I may lean a little bit more toward the left more than anything if I have to pick. But I don't know if I really agree with the idea that, like, for instance, with the Roseanne situation, all the other people lost their jobs. So, you know, the people that are in the crew and the cast, they all lose their primary source of income just because Roseanne tweeted out something that was horribly racist and stupid. I don't know if that's right, you know? Now, this is a soapbox moment for me to just kind of be like, I guess, what's the phrase? He who is without sin casts the first stone. That kind of a thing. But maybe, I don't know, maybe it's the same with the glass houses sort of scenario. I think there's a little bit of bullshit to it, but I also can see WWE's point of view. At the very least, I am totally against this whole thing with Al-Qaeda going on here. Al-Qaeda has threatened the Prince of Saudi Arabia for the greatest Royal Rumble. They apparently have, quote, opened the door for corruption and moral degradation. The foreign disbelieving wrestlers exposed their privates. Side note, did somebody expose themselves during this? Like, did I watch the pay-per-view and somehow miss that, like, somebody's dick was flopping around or something like that? I don't know. Anyway, to get back to their quote. Foreign disbelieving wrestlers exposed their privates, and on most of them was the sign of the cross. In front of a mixed gathering of young Muslim men and women, the corruptors did not stop at that. For every night, musical concerts are being announced, as well as movies and circus shows. I am an ignorant American who does not understand a lot of cultures because to be honest, I don't fucking care about a lot of cultures, including my own. I really, for the most part, I don't care about any kind of cultural pride. You know, I'm part Italian, and I've never really had the strong of an urge to go to Italy. I am an American that doesn't care if, 4th of July is well, we should all salute, and it's just kind of it's just a day to me, kind of. So I certainly don't know what it's like to be in this kind of scenario with Al-Qaeda and Saudi Arabia and everything else like that. However, I do think that it's extremely dumb that other people try to force their opinions on other people when it comes to religion. I think that if you want to do something that's based off of your religion and it only affects you, that's perfectly fine. But you can't say to somebody else that they can't do something because you believe in something different. No matter what religion it is, whether it's Buddhism, Catholicism, anything. I think it's just stupid. So let's break this down a little bit. Opening the door wide for corruption and moral degradation. Well, that's an opinion thing. I disagree, but I can't tell them that they're wrong. Foreign disbelieving wrestlers. All right, well, they are foreign because they're not from Saudi Arabia. I don't really understand why that's an issue, but okay. Expose their privates. Again, I don't remember anybody exposing their privates. But if we're talking about a scenario where it's oh my God, you showed off your calves and that's offensive, then whatever. Most of them was the sign of the cross. Really? Do people in WWE have a cross sign on them? I don't remember this being a thing. So you invalidate your point of view with this immediately when it comes to that kind of stuff. And then when you start getting into, well, that's not even the end of it. They've got musical concerts and movies and circus shows. Oh, well, shit. Saudi Arabia should just be a place where nothing happens then, right? I don't know. This is just stupid. And I hate it. And I hate everything about it. Yeah. I could go on and on about this. That's the thing. I really could. But I sort of feel like I can't in this sort of environment anymore. We're talking about literally a guy getting sued because of a podcast where he said his opinions about his doctor. And we're in an environment where anybody says anything and they've offended somebody and then they're the worst person in the world. So, I don't know. It's getting very, very frustrating to be able to voice your opinion, especially when you're trying to be a reasonable person that can see many gray areas and multiple different sides, and to not feel like all you're going to do is get attacked. So I probably won't say anything more on this issue, except to make a joke that the next Saudi Arabia show should be called WWE International Incident. They should bring it back and just say, fuck it, let's turn into this good. But those are my opinions about these hot tags, and maybe by the time we do our main event, we'll know some more information about other things that have gone on with here. Maybe we can just take a minute or so to kind of address those. But yeah, that is my perspective of what's going on this week in pro wrestling. We got these stories. We got a shit episode of Monday Night Raw. I'm really not looking forward to SmackDown. You can tell I'm not really in a great mood, and I'm burnt out. And that is what it is. So thank you for listening to this, by the way, everybody. Thank you for showing your support as always. And, you know, sharing things and liking things and buying t-shirts from TeePublic before they get taken down for copyright bullshit, or, you know, following my posts on other websites and anything that you guys do like that, you know, chiming in on the Mega Maniacs on different things that we've got going on. Like, for instance, I'm doing the Sexiest Superstars tournament coming up soon, and I've got a thing up there right now that is asking about the people that shouldn't be in the preliminary vote. I'd like to get some more opinions about that too, and we're going to be doing the preliminary qualifying round pretty soon. It's not going to be next week. I think it's going to be the week after that. So pay attention to that. The next thing you're going to be hearing me is going to be the main event for this week, which is going to be called The Spot on the Card. And that is going to be ranking the men and the women that are in the Money in the Bank ladder matches on a scale from the bottom of the list, which is being erased from history, like the Chris Benoit treatment, all the way up until Hall of Famer, you know, complete counterbalance and stuff. So that's going to be fun. We're going to be able to rank people. It's really tough. I did the list already, and man, this was a fucking difficult list. So if you want to be when you want to be aware of when that is coming up, the best thing for you to do, if you're on iTunes and Stitcher, is to just follow Smark Out Moment with the RSS feed. You could also follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Smark Out Moment. But more than anything, follow the YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button on there, and also check off the notifications. Just ring that little bell, and then you'll get an email that'll be able to tell you when that video comes up. We're probably recording that on Thursday afternoon, so probably Thursday night is when it'll be up. And we will see you when we see you. Again, thanks for listening to this, everybody. I know it can be tough sometimes, and I know that this isn't the most entertaining episode, but you get what you get. Leave your comments below. I'm rambling now, so I'll see you. All right, adios, everybody. This has been another Smark Out Moment, and I'm being counted out.